Hey friends, this is JB and I am presenting wisdom to you, for you. And today we're moving back into Ecclesiastes and we're moving forward, charging it. We've got the contrast of wisdom and folly. The contrast of will, and we've got a lot ahead. We've got the whole chapter here. Now it's not terribly a whole lot, like it's not pages upon pages, but we've got a few pages we normally don't get into as much, or we haven't been in this particular phase of our wisdom challenge. And one of the things that we're going to try to start doing here in a couple days is we're going to try to give you some things to think about, some application, some challenges. We're going to challenge you to start to contrast wisdom and folly. We're going to challenge you to pour in to this word itself. It's not much. We're going to keep marching forward with wisdom until the Lord sees fit to take me out of this. And I tell you what, I remember a long time ago, it was 2009. I believe it was 2009. No, not 2009. Probably 2006. It was in 2006. And I'm in my house. And the house that we were living at the time was a smaller house. They call them starter houses here in the U.S. And that starter house was in a starter neighborhood, meaning that they didn't really know how to behave like normal neighbors. There was a lot of transient people, Section 8. And I think it was after Katrina at some point. And the whole area was simply always having problems, okay? And I didn't know what to make of it. And I was still pressing into the Lord. I was growing in the Lord. And what I remember was that there was this empty lot next to our house that had this slab. This slab was about 8 inches high, but it was destroyed by fire at one point, meaning that there were cracks in it. There were cracks in the foundation, and I don't even think the plumbing and different things needed to be fixed before anyone could build on it. But the point is that it was just an eyesore to the neighborhood. And there was a few other lots like that here and there, sporadic after Katrina. Katrina didn't do any help to anyone over there. And of course, that's the big storm, right? We'll be referring back to that in my later years, I'm sure. But the point is that I felt this calling upon me to do this, to make a cross and put it on the lot next to me. Now, this lot had this big pipe sticking out of the ground. It was about a 4-inch, 5-inch pipe that was used for waste, I suppose, like your toilet or something like that. But granted, there's no house on it, just a clear slab, and it's not dirty or nothing. It was filled with dirt, in fact. It wasn't like waste in there. But the Lord put it upon me to make a cross and put it in that hole. All right? Now, you can imagine when you're feeling that, you're like, I mean, Lord, should I really do that? I mean, is this what to do? And so I made a cross. I painted the cross white, and I put it on that foundation. And so here's like you get to this old slab of a lot if you were driving by or walking by, and here you'd see this cross right in the middle of it. You know, the cross was probably about 5 feet high and 2 feet wide. Used both 4x4 posts. And I tell you what, I kept it up there, and I had painted it. Every month or two, the rain would kind of get at it, and I'd put a little more paint on. One time, my neighbor took it down, and I asked him about it. I said, "What happened?" And he said, "I took that down." And I'm like, "Why'd you do that?" And he's like, that you don't know who believes what in this neighborhood. That may be offensive and whatever." I said, "Well, you know what, neighbor, I'll tell you this much. I'm not going to get into it too much. That I felt God put upon my heart to put that there. Now, you took it down. I don't know if the Lord's going to put upon me to put it back or to not put it back. I don't know what the situation will be. Okay. But I just want you to know, to be advised that you're the one taking that down. And he was uncomfortable about that. And I just felt like the Lord told me to, leave it be. And recently I just went back over there. We still rent the house that we own, and I was doing some maintenance on it. And I saw the guy over there at his house, and I just went and really introduced myself to him, because I never did before. But I had this Spirit of God with me, and I was just, asking him how things were, how his kids were, and we got to talking, and it was just a good conversation. I changed so much, and it was such a blessing. And today I've been going through all of the good things that the Lord has done for me, including bringing more wisdom to me. What's more wise than to want to pour into God's word on a daily basis? It's huge, and to make a commitment to do so. And I'm not making any money off this, and sometimes I'll look out there and I don't see as many people watching this as I would like. But just like that cross, I don't know what the significance of that cross was back then, but I know that it was significant because God spoke to me to do it. And just like these right now, I don't know what the significance of these are now, but God's sharing with me to do this, and I'm putting it out there. And the time will come when he, relieves me of this burden. And it's not a burden, it's a joy, really. But there are other things in the world to do, and he's not going to have me here forever doing this. It just is not going to be. And I mean, eventually I'll die, even if it takes that long. But he will move this phase out of my life. I won't always be here. And just make the most out of yours. Whatever God's pouring upon you to do, maybe it's reading a Bible with your son or daughter. Okay, maybe it's reading a Bible with your grandson, right? Maybe it's trying to read the Bible for yourself. I don't know. But the thing of it is, whatever God's putting on your heart to do it. Do it to the fullest, okay? Do it with excellence. Give it all you got. Enjoy yourself. God's got time to enjoy yourself. If it's something that's keeping you up at all hours of the night, you're getting no sleep, and you're feeling this torment and pressure from all directions. There's sometimes that's a growth phase, but sometimes that's you trying to outdo yourself, doing things that God's not actually asking you to do. Devil may be confusing you. So we getting in this though, okay? Let's get into this contrast of wisdom and folly. This is always huge. You can kind of tell what things are by learning the opposite of what they are not, okay? You can tell what when you have a fine glass of wine by having a real bad glass of wine, or no wine even, okay? And many people are like, oh, wow, you said wine. Well, you can put it in the terms of a Coke or whatever, or a nice cake. A nice cake versus a stale piece of cake. You can really get a sense by putting these things in contrast and getting a sense of what they are, that much more. You do that, and you're able to identify what it is that you're talking about at greater levels. It's more clear, okay? When you use this contrasting effect, where you essentially make it known what it is not, and it's so far over, you have a way of clarifying. That's why I think why God has had the devil, who's this one who's, I wouldn't call it like equal opposite, but his evilness is so great that it does help to magnify who God is. It's very clear. When you see people trying to teach kids to change into different genders, to forsake what God has given them, or to manipulate them or sexually abuse them, or really any sin, really. And when you see that, it does serve a purpose in that it shows how far from God you are, and or maybe not you, but how people are. But we all are sinners, and so by contrasting that, with the wickedness in our hearts, the evil of Satan and the accuser, and how contrasting and polarizing it is compared to God's goodness, it does serve a purpose in several ways, and one of them is to help us show us what God is. And that's why some people have recently, one of our pastors was saying that they're not worried about so much the devil. Okay. They're worried because the devil's so contrasting, essentially. They're worried about the people who call themselves Christians and walk around the world calling themselves Christians, but do not live as a Christian would. So it's like they're portraying they're a Christian, but their actions do not portray true Christian, the faith and values of Christ. And what happens is it causes confusion to those of us who are trying to do that. So there's not as much, the contrasting there is subtle and subversive. And so this contrast of wisdom and folly is huge. So we're going to take a little bit more time getting through this if we need to, and we're going to make it happen. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. A good name, we all want that. These days, there was a period, a phase where your name was almost becoming worthless. But now with the identity of the internet, people have to take more accountability for themselves again. Isn't that interesting? There was a time in this world where your name meant something. And then with the way people carried on for so long, they could get by and slide through the system with their name and just kind of move and bounce about. It wasn't really, it was hard to kind of keep up with people. Records weren't good. Now, with the internet and with the technology and with all of these things, your name is becoming a brand that's you can't come away from. And it's a good thing, because we should all stand up for our name. Okay. And I know the identity theft and all that, but we should all do that. And the day of death than the day of birth. The day of death. The day of death. We're going to heaven or hell. We want that day to come. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. The house of feasting. The house of mourning, people are crying out to God, and they're getting stronger because they're at the bottom moving up. The house of feasting, oftentimes there's a trough up ahead. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of face the heart is made glad. By sadness of face the heart is made glad. Because you can't stay in that trough forever. The heart is made glad. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. The house of mirth. It is better for a man to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. A lot of people don't like to be rebuked. I don't. You don't. But would you accept it if it was from someone who's wise? Someone told me yesterday, and I was putting some honest information out there on a bio of mine. And he said, you know what, I just don't think it'd be received well. And I said to myself, let me take another look at it. It's true. And the way I'm thinking about what I put out there would really signal a strong character, but it probably wasn't being received the way it should be. And so I changed it. I took it down and I changed it and made it more digestible for people. I have a way of just speaking truth, and people do not want to be rebuked. Okay? People do not want that. They would prefer to hear the song of fools. And I have a talent of putting the rebuke out there as a lesson. And you know, I even have to learn lessons too, but when the right time is it the time to do that or not? But many people love the song of fools. Boy, they love to hear it. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fools. This also is vanity. The crackling of thorns under a pot. What's the crackling of thorns under a pot? Does anyone know? I've got a little study companion Bible here. Number 6, Ecclesiastes 7, verse 6. Crackling of thorns. Thorns placed in a fire burn rapidly and make a lot of noise. The quick flash of heat does not burn long enough to cook a meal. The crackling of thorns under a pot. So interesting, huh? So I didn't know. They probably burn real hot, real fast, pop, but do not give any sustained heat. So is the laughter of fools, just like the laughter of fools. This is also vanity. Surely oppression drives the wise into madness, and a bribe corrupts the heart. Now, I've seen some other talk about bribe in Proverbs. Talks about this, but we're gonna have to see what we might want to do a little studying on when it comes to bribe and giving money and what it means, at least in biblical times. It's interesting. Surely oppression drives the wise into madness. Doesn't it though? But you know, when we've got God, we will never be oppressed. Not truly. But over a duration, boy, it's so tough. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit better than the proud in spirit. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the heart of fools. So you become angry, guess what? The fool out there, man, he holds on to it, he remembers it. Guess what? And guess what? Do you think there are more wise people in the world or more fools? Especially in America. Let's just talk in America. Let's just talk in your hometown or just on your job. Do you think there are more wise people or fools? Okay. So you need to kind of like watch your tongue is what it's saying. Say not, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Probably not. You need to be in joy. Learn how to just say, God, I'm going to make it through this. You are strengthening me, God. I was praying about that just a little while ago. I don't understand it all, but the Lord has been so faithful. If you pour yourself in your heart into God at your level, whatever you're at, okay, you may not be at JB level, and I may not be at Moses level, but wherever you are at, the Lord will meet you wherever you're at, and you start pouring into Him, and you don't have nothing to worry about. It will come through. You will figure it out. God will make it happen, okay? So for your days will get better. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and advantage to those who see the sun. What is it? Advantage to those who see the sun. What is that? Advantage to those who see the sun. That's 11. Wisdom is a good. It doesn't explain it in this one. I'll have to get in my other study Bible. Advantage to those who sees the sun. Well, who does see the sun? The people who have eyesight. The people who open their eyes, wake up in the morning. Wake up in the morning is probably it. wisdom is good to those who work and wake up in the morning to get to work. I bet you that's what it is. That's how I'm taking it. Those who wake up and produce. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. Consider the work of God. Who can make straight what he has made crooked? Only God. In the day of prosperity be joyful, and in that day of the adversary consider. God has made the one as well as the other, so that man may not find out anything that will be after him. That's so true. You can't find out what will be after you. That would be looking into the future, right? That's kind of like understanding that you can't. In my vain life, but God does give you, some of us anyways, gives me a way of, I hate to say it like this, but of sort of reading the landscape and anticipating, sort of foreseeing what's about to happen. I've been in that situation, but that's a little different. We don't know with certainty. God puts it in some of our hearts. In my vain life, I have seen everything. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his evil doing. Isn't that funny? I don't even know this was coming, kind of, but it's funny because there's a wicked man who prolongs his life in his evil doing. Isn't that what he's doing, though? But not overly righteous. Be not overly righteous, and do not make yourself too wise. Why should you destroy yourself? You can't really do it, I think is what he's saying. You can only do so much. Meet God where you are, okay? God will meet you where you are. Be not overly wicked, neither be a fool. Why should you die before your time? It is good that you should take hold of this, and from that withhold not your hand. For the one who fears God shall come out from both of them. All right. Wisdom gives strength to the wise man more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Wisdom gives strength to the wise man more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Wow. That's huge. Isn't it, though? Surely there's not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. Ooh. Do not take to heart all the things that people say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. Your heart knows that many times you yourself have cursed others. Come on now, right? You know you've done it. All this I have tested by wisdom. I said, I will be wise, but it was not far from me. That which has been far off and deep, very deep, who can find it out? I turned my heart to know and to search out and to seek wisdom and the schemes of things, and to know the wickedness of folly and the foolishness that is madness. And I find something more bitter than death, the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and whose hands are fetters. He who pleases God escapes her, but the sinner is taken by her. Behold, this is what I found, says the preacher, while adding one thing to another to find the scheme of things, which my soul has already sought repeatedly, but I have not found. One man among 1,000 I found, but a woman among all these I have not found. See, this alone I found, that God made man upright, but they have sought out many schemes. Well, there's a lot going on here, and we didn't really get to dive into this last paragraph as much. But I would encourage you, Ecclesiastes 7:5, these last couple of paragraphs here, I would say from 23 on, 22, 21 on possibly, get in there. Find out what some of these mean. What are people thinking? In what context? Think about it. They're talking like 2,000-3,000 years ago, trying to make sense of things. God's pouring into them, and they're writing it down. Get into some of this area. JB's not going to be around here forever. You've got to learn, and I'm going to put that challenge on you today. We starting with a challenge. The challenge today is to get into Ecclesiastes 7:25. That's your challenge. Now you heard the rest. You want to do the whole chapter, do it. But I would encourage you just 7:25. Find out what it means to you. Look into it. Dive in. Dig in. Get wisdom. Get insight. Get understanding. And get it now. Let's do this. Take good care, my friends.